It was a stormy evening when life's paths collided in the most unexpected way. Daniel, a single dad in his early 30s, was driving home after finishing a long shift at the mechanic shop. His son, Ethan, was already asleep in the back seat, his small body curled under a blanket. The road was slick, the rain pounding against the windshield, when Daniel spotted something unusual on the side of the road: a young woman, drenched and trembling, clutching two crying babies in her arms. At first, he thought it must have been some accident. But as he slowed down, the truth struck harder than the storm. The girl, barely 19, was barefoot, her clothes torn by the rain, and her eyes swollen from crying. The babies, twins, not older than 6 months, were wrapped in thin blankets, soaked through. She didn't wave for help, she just stood there, broken, as though she didn't even believe anyone would stop for her. But Daniel did. He pulled over and rushed out with his jacket, quickly wrapping it around the shivering little ones. "Hey, it's okay, you're safe now," he said, trying to calm both her and the crying infants. The girl looked at him as if she wanted to believe those words but couldn't. Still, she let him lead her into the car. Her name was Layla. Just 19, she had been married young, and not long after giving birth to her twin daughters, tragedy struck. Her husband died in a construction accident. Instead of finding comfort in her in-laws' house, she was cast out, blamed for his death, and told she and the babies were a burden they didn't want. With nowhere to go and no family willing to take her in, she had been walking along the road in the storm, hoping to reach the city but having no idea how. Daniel listened quietly as she told her story, his chest tightening with empathy. He knew what it felt like to be abandoned by the people who were supposed to love you. His ex-wife had walked out when Ethan was just 3, unable to handle the struggles of a modest life. Since then, Daniel had been raising his son alone, learning through trial and error how to survive. He took Layla and the babies home. His house wasn't big, just 2 bedrooms, a small living room, and a kitchen that always smelled faintly of engine oil because of his work, but it was warm and safe. He set up a bed for Layla and the twins, offered her food, and handed her one of Ethan's old baby bottles so she could feed the girls. Layla broke down crying, clutching her daughters close, whispering her gratitude over and over. The days that followed were not easy. The babies woke up constantly through the night, and Layla, though young, was exhausted beyond words. Daniel would step in quietly, rocking one baby while she soothed the other. Ethan, at just 8 years old, became the big brother the twins didn't know they needed, bringing them toys and making silly faces to make them giggle. Slowly, a new rhythm began to take shape inside that small house. But there were challenges. Daniel's neighbors whispered about him bringing a young woman into his home. Some judged Layla for being a teen mother, while others accused Daniel of making reckless choices. Even at work, Daniel faced questions and raised eyebrows. But he stood firm. She needed help. "That's all that matters," he'd say, brushing off the gossip. Layla, too, struggled with her pride. She hated feeling like a burden. One evening, she confessed through tears, "You've done more for me in a week than my family did in years. But I don't want to just take. I want to give back." So she started helping however she could. She cooked meals, cleaned the house, and even began sewing little dresses for her girls from fabric scraps she found. Daniel noticed her determination, her kindness, and the way her laughter, when it finally returned, filled the empty spaces in the house like sunlight. Months passed. Layla applied for small jobs but was rejected again and again for her lack of experience. Daniel encouraged her, never letting her give up. One day, he surprised her with a flyer he'd seen at the local community center, a training program for young mothers in childcare and teaching. With his support, she enrolled, bringing her babies with her to the classes. For the first time since her husband's death, Layla began to dream again. As for Daniel, something unexpected was happening. Watching Layla care for her twins reminded him of the love and gentleness he thought had left his life for good. She was young, yes, but her heart carried a strength he deeply admired. And Layla, though hesitant at first, began to feel safe around him, safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. One evening, after putting the children to bed, they sat on the porch under the stars. Layla turned to Daniel, her voice trembling. "I used to think my life was over. That night on the road, I didn't care if I made it anywhere. But then you stopped. You saved me. You saved my girls." Daniel shook his head gently. No, Layla. You saved me too. I didn't know how empty I was until you and the twins filled this house with life again. Tears rolled down Layla's cheeks, but this time they were tears of hope, not despair. For the first time, she realized she wasn't alone anymore. As time went on, their little patchwork family grew stronger. Layla finished her training and began working at a preschool, her twins happily playing among the children. Daniel expanded his garage, finally turning it into the small business he'd always dreamed of, thanks to Layla helping him organize the finances. Ethan, proud of his new sisters, often bragged to his friends about his big family. The whispers of neighbors faded into silence as people began to admire the resilience and love that radiated from that household. And one day, standing together as a family at a community fair, Layla leaned over and whispered to Daniel, "Maybe this was the miracle we both needed. You didn't just rescue me that night, you gave me a new life." Daniel smiled, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "No, Layla, we gave each other a new life." And in that moment, under the laughter of children and the warmth of the sun, they knew their broken pasts had come together to build something unshakable, proof that family isn't always the one you're born into. Sometimes, it's the one you're brave enough to create.